Welcome to the Astrology Hub Podcast. I'm Amanda Walsh, founder of Astrology Hub, and your host for our flagship show. We explore the many ways astrology can support you in your relationships, career, health, and personal growth. Thanks for tuning in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so pleased to be here today with Vibrational Astrology specialist and author, David Cochrane. David has been featured on the Astrology Hub podcast several times in the past, and I'm really, really grateful to be back here with him today, talking about a very important issue, and bridging how astrology can actually help with this particular thing. So we're today talking about the astrology of bipolar disorder. And David reached out to me and said, "Hey, Amanda, I've written this book," which I know is a big culminating moment of years and years of research that David has put into this topic. So I'm very excited to talk about this with all of you today. And before we dive in, if you are not yet a Cosmic Insider recipient, I highly encourage you to go to astrologyhub.com/insider and become one. Now, you'll get a weekly overview of the cosmic weather, plus a roundup of all of our podcast episodes for the previous week that we have featured here on the Astrology Hub Podcast Network. And the Cosmic Insider is free. So just go to astrologyhub.com/insider and start getting your weekly cosmic weather scoop today. That's astrologyhub.com/insider. Okay, so David, I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction for David. He is definitely one of the legends, one of the leaders in the field of astrology, especially when it comes to research and astrology. So he has been an astrologer for our Inner Circle membership several times. The last time was 2019. He's an award-winning astrologer and has a master's in research and evaluation methodology from the University of Florida. His practice focuses primarily on vibrational astrology, which is fascinating on its own. I highly encourage you to check out David and his YouTube channel and go down the vibrational astrology rabbit hole because it's fascinating. He's also authored the book, Vibrational Astrology, The Essentials, and many other books on topics ranging from the astrology of bipolar disorder to astrolocality. He was featured on episode 64 of the Astrology Hub podcast, and the title of that was the Vibration of Love. So we were talking about vibrational astrology and focused on love and intimate relationships. Again, that's episode 64. Highly encourage you to check it out. You'll get more of David's backstory on that episode because today we're going to be really focused on the topic of bipolar disorder. So welcome, David. It's great to have you back on the show.
Hey, Amanda, it's been too many years.
Too many years, for sure.
It's great to be back. Yep.
Yay. Awesome. So let's start here. What inspired you to focus on bipolar disorder? How did that begin?
Okay. How it began is my colleague and dear friend who was also on the, what do you call it?
The Inner Circle. Yes.
Inner Circle. I couldn't think of the word. The Inner Circle, Giselle Terry. She's a marriage and family therapist. Some of you may remember Giselle. So Giselle has been an astrologer for decades, beautiful person, and has a very busy practice. And she enrolled in my program in vibrational astrology, which a lot of professional astrologers do because it's a new world. And towards the end of the program, she started looking at her clients. She has a good number of clients, about 30 clients that she has a birth time for from a birth certificate. And she's looked at them before, and she started looking at them with the vibrational astrology. And she asked me, how do we do this research? And I started guiding her. And she found very consistent things in their charts, with her clients. And she has very extensive notes on them. And when they've had episodes, we looked at the transits. When things blew up, they had unstable time periods. And it worked so well. It was so informative. And perhaps more importantly, it was so helpful to Giselle. She was able to see and understand things going on with the client. And then the next thing that happened was we found a database, or we already have a database in our software of people with bipolar disorder. And so with that database of hundreds of people, we could test what we saw in the clients to see if it was in the charts of the people in the database, and it is.
Amazing. And
And
so when yeah,
that's the
yeah.
amazing. That's what blew our minds. Is like, oh my God, this is working. And then I'll just tell you one more part of the story.
Mhm.
After we did all that, and this is years of work. I mean, one of our jokes was, we're going to be bipolar pretty soon. I mean, I mean, doing this kind of research is so demanding. It's just incredible. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. You're unraveling a mystery, because you might wonder, like, why is it so difficult? Think of it this way: why has no one validated what we see in astrology yet? Why hasn't that bridge been crossed? And a lot of people have a lot of reasons. Well, we crossed the bridge. And then we found, or Giselle found, 70 more cases of people with bipolar disorder. So we tested our model, this list of things people have. And the amazing thing is, it worked better with the new data than with the previous data. That never happens in research. I mean, like, it was unbelievable. After we did that, I mean, I literally didn't sleep for 2 nights just from excitement. And you're just like, my mind was blown. I've been doing this since 1972, and it gets better and better and better. And then one day I woke up and I said, you need to write this down.
Mm.
This is now ready for showtime. And I'll show you the book. There it is.
Yay. Oh my gosh, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's available everywhere. You can just Google it. And yeah, so that's the story. Very, very exciting. And it just came out earlier this year. So this is all new stuff.
Amazing. So when you were telling the story, Giselle had 30 clients with bipolar disorder, correct? That
Well,
she was able to get the birth information for.
So she had 30 people. They weren't all bipolar.
Okay.
She had 30 people with various mental illnesses. And
Yeah.
this is a real marriage and family therapist. They go through this catalog and they have to identify. It's very, very, she works with psychiatrists and medical centers. And, it's very, very formal stuff. And they're carefully diagnosed, and they have all these notes and analysis and records of drugs they've taken, etc. So they were not all bipolar disorder. I don't remember how many were diagnosed with bipolar disorder 1 or 2. I think it was about 12 to 15.
Okay. And so then you were able to find your database of people that were diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but that you also had the astrological information about. And then you started to see trends, is what I'm understanding. You started to see trends in their chart.
Right. There were these 2 French people. A lot of the viewers probably know their names: Michel and Francoise Gauquelin, the famous Gauquelin. Well, the Gauquelins collected enormous amounts of data. And back in those days, I think this was around the 60s or so, there wasn't as much privacy in any country. So they could go to a hospital and they could write for birth records, and they could just get the data. So they went to a hospital, and a lot of people, were born, live, grow up, and get married right there in Paris. And they actually do everything right there. So they were able to get the birth times for 700 people with bipolar disorder. So it was the data collected by the Gauquelin.
Wow.
And what we did is we took what we thought we were seeing with a dozen people. With a dozen people, you don't know.
Right.
But in your heart, I mean, just like you do any astrology, it's like, there it is. There's the behavior. We watch the transits. When the transits hit it, they have, a breakdown or an episode. Anyway, we applied the formula to the 700, and number 1, it worked. And number 2, we refined the formula. We got it better.
So David, how does understanding this about someone's chart, or about trends in bipolar disorder, and how you can see those in an astrological chart, how does that actually help? Like, how does it help the individual with it? How does it help the therapist who's helping the person? How does it help family members who may be supporting someone with bipolar disorder? What have you seen?
The help is enormous. It's incredible. I'll give you an example. Suppose someone has Saturn in a strong, what we call 7 vibration. In Vedic astrology, they call it the Saptamsa chart, also known as septiles and biseptiles and triseptiles. And when someone has Saturn with 2 or 3 other planets connected together in these septile kinds of aspects, they tend to withdraw. They withdraw. They want to be alone. They'll often just read a book at night. They'll want to be quiet and secluded. And then what happens with bipolar disorder is they often have that. And then they have some wild, crazy, uncontrollable thing. So the analysis was like crazy simple. They're
Mm.
literally have one configuration that's out of control and another one that pulls away. And in looking at it, what we realized is that bipolar disorder is not like a disease, like getting a virus. It's an energetic system, and
Mm.
it's not as much a pathology as we say it is until it gets to extreme. I mean, if you have BD2 and it gets really extreme, yes, it's clearly dysfunctional. But BD1, there's a lot of actual positive potential in it. Well, here's what happened. If someone has bipolar disorder and they have Saturn in 7 vibration, the therapist may say, "Oh, you need to get out. Go out with your friends on Friday night. Oh, you used to go bowling. Go bowling. Da da da. Oh, you like to dance. Get out, get out, get out." If they have Saturn in 7 vibration, that's going to hurt them.
Wow. Interesting.
That is going to hurt them. What they need to do is they need to be alone for periods of time and to enjoy their aloneness. Get a good book, watch a movie. I mean, there can be another person there, but it's relatively quiet. You're just engaged with something. Don't just sit there and pout about how you don't like your father, he was abusive and blah, 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 and just rerun these old scripts. That's what leads to the depression. They pull away and then they start recycling this stuff and it doesn't go anywhere. Find something to engage. What do you enjoy? Do you like games? Do you like what? Find something, write, read, whatever it is, play a musical instrument, anything that requires that discipline, quiet, and withdrawing, meditation. I know one fellow I was counseling, he said to me he walks his dog every night for about an hour. And his dog really doesn't want to go for a walk for an hour every night, but he does. He needs it. That's his way of shutting down. It's the sun has set, it's quiet, you're just feeling the breeze. That's it. Anyway, if the person does not have that and the depression is caused by something else, then going out will be great. And yes, they can go out, but the more important thing is how can you be alone and be happy in your aloneness? Because that ain't going away. If something's in your chart, you're programmed. It's like a genetic code, cosmic genetic code. So yeah, the help is enormous because we can go right to the person. And when you connect with the person, it's like always an oh my God experience. They know that and you're right on the same wavelength with them. And it's so affirming.
Right. I can see it affirming in several ways. I mean, I have chills all over my body because one of the things that you're saying is that they need to honor their chart. They need to honor their wiring. And if they honor their wiring and don't try to be different and don't try to fit into some other mold, then that's where they can express those different aspects of themselves that may seem like they're contradicting each other, but maybe they're essential. They're equally essential. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, cultural programming or whatever, they don't feel like they can do the thing that they need to do to feel strong and healthy in themselves. The other thing that you're saying that just really resonates is that just to be seen, just to be seen and understood in like, hey, you have these two conflicting forces within yourself that must feel really hard to manage at times. And it's there, it's there for you to learn how to navigate, for you to actually, again, honor these two very different aspects of yourself. That doesn't make you wrong or bad. There's just is what it is. And so I can see how having someone really reflect that very deeply to someone would be almost enough to just move out of that place that you were talking about before, like the rehashing of all the things that are wrong, and maybe just like giving yourself permission to be exactly where you need to be.
Right. And every case is different. Sometimes people don't even realize that they're that way. Like
Right.
their time of being alone is just that they're crying and they're miserable. So if you say to them, you need time alone, they say, no, I don't. I hate being alone. I have no desire to be alone. Are you alone? Yeah, I go alone every night. I'm depressed and I go off by myself. So they don't even recognize what's going on because they haven't developed a good habit with it. So one of the keys is recognition, affirmation, being seen, and developing good habits.
Ah,
You know,
yes.
yeah, because it's not all, woo woo, kumbaya, we'll sit around the campfire. Oh, we see each other, we're all blissed out, end of story. No, there's work to be done. And, it's just like if you have a bad diet, breaking that diet, if you smoke cigarettes, it's bad for you. We all have bad habits. Life is about. But, what we can do with the client is we help them find good habits.
Mm.
And we brainstorm. A lot of times we'll say, how about this? How about that? And they go, yes. When I was a kid, I always wanted to play piano. And then, and then I wasn't very good. And then I was dyslexic. And but you really want to play piano, don't you? I really do. I really do. I really do. Guess what? Give yourself permission. That's when the tears start flowing. That's when the realization comes. So what's wonderful about this? A lot of people often say, oh, David's a scientist, research, computer programmer. He's going to label everything. He's going to put it in a box. He's going to kill the soul of astrology. No, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. Knowing what's going on doesn't put you in a box. It's like setting you free because you see what the options are. We're just understanding more clearly what's going on. That's all.
And David, it sounds like vibrational astrology specifically has been key to this research. Is it only when you're looking through the vibrational astrology lens that you can see these patterns, or do they also translate to the other different ways that people might practice astrology?
Wow, that's a great question. So far, we have been able to develop these models that work so beautifully only with vibrational astrology. I just did a huge study of married couples. The Gauquelins collected 19,000 cases of married couples. Can you believe this? And we have that in our software. And we have things to search. So I said to myself about a year ago, I said, I'm going to validate zodiac signs because I know they work. I'm going to validate it. I'm tired of everything just being these septiles and whatever. And I looked at the moon signs and the sun sign, the ascendant. I couldn't validate anything. So, we know it's there. And, I've done Vedic astrology. I have a lot of Vedic astrologer friends. I would love, love, love to be using other ideas from modern psychological, Vedic, Hellenistic, and show that we could see whatever it is. We've just did research on heart disease. We're doing research on eating disorders. We're seeing the patterns. And it's amazing when you read their biographies, how they describe the particular problems that they had and they ran into as the details of those configurations. So answer finally after, I know I talk a lot, but the bottom line is we're only using these vibrational astrology ideas so far. We would love to use other ideas.
What I find interesting about that is that vibrational astrology, or at least the way that you're practicing and teaching vibrational astrology, is relatively new on the scene, right? I mean, I know it's ancient principles, but the actual way that you put it together is relatively new. But it's almost like we're ready for this link to be made. We're ready for it, and that vibrational astrology is one of those keys that we need in order to make these links right when the technology supports it, right? Like we didn't have a way to gather all this data and run analyses and all these things that we need in order to validate astrology. But it seems like it's all coming together at the perfect time for us to really be able to use it as a supportive tool in so many different areas of life.
You are so 100% correct that I couldn't say it any better. Is that the things that we are looking at, you cannot see without a computer. Number one, you need the accuracy of a computer. Number one, it would take you months just to find half these things. It's just the patterns are so beautiful, so intricate, so detailed. There was no way to see it. You have to have the databases. I've done a lot of time writing the software and making it all work. And let me say one more thing about this. Something has surprised me about after we came out with the book a few months ago. Data scientists are excited about this. So we're starting a nonprofit institute with data scientists. So academics have actually responded with more enthusiasm so far than the astrologers. And this just like blew my mind. It's like, what? Wow. And they're connected with major universities, like top universities. And so we are going to have a research institute. We're planning to present this to major universities in cross-disciplinary lectures, and it'll be a nonprofit. And we think that people will be donating. So we're moving into the mainstream because they're reading the book and they're going, oh my God, it looks like it works.
Why do you think they're particularly why do you think they're interested now? And I mean, this must just really open up something for them in order to actually more effectively treat people or care for people. Like, why do you think they're interested now?
I think the big reason is if you love something and you're on the inside of it, you have a language, you have a style, you have a way of talking, you have a way of referring to things. And most of us wear several hats. Some of us, are Reiki healers and astrologers, nutritionists and astrologers, economists and astrologers. And I'm a data scientist and an astrologer. And so when I write the book is very simple. It's simple. There's no big math or whatever. But when a data scientist reads it, they feel like, wow, this is like totally comfortable because we speak the same language. So when I say, we're not interested in p-values, we're interested in confidence levels, and this is evidence-based, it's not science. These are some of the ideas, and they're presented very simple way. They're going, yes, yes, yes. And then I say, here's our first study. In itself, not convincing, but gives us a hint. And they go, yes, that's what happened with my genetics research for the university. I got a hint. And then they go, can't wait to the next chapter. And in the next chapter, we'll see where this hint led. It's like a suspense story, And one of these data scientists said, he couldn't put it down. He was, was literally up all night because what happens next? What happens? And then you're actually cheering because the same, you've been through the same thing, and you go, he did it. He found the model work. Yes, that's just like when I was doing my PhD, and here he's getting all depressed and everything, and nothing's more. You go through these ups and downs. So why are they getting excited? Because it's now in their language. Why is it in their language? Because it happens to be my language. Let me say one more thing. Sometimes people will say, why are you doing this scientific thing? You're trying to prove astrology. Oh my God, that is the most, idiotic thing you can say. It's sorry, but it's idiotic. It's like, you don't do research to prove something. You do research because you're curious. You want to know. You want to find out how astrology works. And we believe that using these methods combined with seeing clients, which is extremely important to validate, by the way, doesn't replace what we do. It supplements it and makes it more. We're finding out. I just want to find. I'm a kid. I'm curious. I want to know what the heck is going on. That's why we're not trying to prove something to somebody else. My God, what a waste of your life that would be.
David, I love your childlike enthusiasm and curiosity. So for our community, David was one of the first astrologers that I spoke to years ago. He was in that initial cohort of astrologers that I got introduced to, and I was just like, whoa, this man's, first of all, so intelligent. Second of all, so enthusiastic and passionate and excited about this topic. This is so inspiring that you've been doing this since 1972 and you're really still so enthusiastic about it. So thank you for opening up doors and thank you for following your curiosity. I think that's how any amazing discoveries happen. So I'm so grateful that you're continuing to follow that because you're uncovering some incredible links that wouldn't be uncovered otherwise. I remember saying to you early on, when I first started getting into astrology, because I have a little bit more of an analytical bent to me, I have my master's is in psychology. And so it was very research based. Everything had to be proven, But so I kind of came into it with like, gosh, are there any studies? Like, has anybody actually done any research on this? Because it seems like it'd be something that would be quite easy to validate. And then when I met you, it was like, oh, yes, like there are people doing research. And these are like, this is real deal research. You're not going to do lightweight research. I know, David, because you're so committed to it being true. You aren't just trying to prove something. You really want to know for the sake of knowing.
Right.
So, why fabricate or fluff it up when you don't, that's not your point. That's not your point. We have a comment from Leah Moonlight that I wanted to just run by you and get your thoughts on. So she says, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder years ago. The more I've learned about astrology, I've come to realize every symptom or trait of BPD is basically my 8th house Scorpio trait or other aspect. So I know bipolar can be extraordinarily debilitating. I actually have a cousin who was diagnosed with bipolar early on in his life and has struggled with it his entire life. He's struggled both equally with bipolar disorder and with the medication that has been prescribed to him to treat bipolar. So it's just a really challenging situation all around. But I'm wondering how much you see or how much you've experienced could potentially be misunderstanding of something that is basically astrological traits that can be expressed many different ways. And that if people understood how to express the spectrum of their astrological design, that maybe some of the what sometimes can be misunderstanding or misdiagnosis could be avoided. I'd just love to hear your thoughts.
Wow, this is a big one. I think where we're headed as a human family is towards the idea more of healing. Instead of suppressing symptoms or getting something at the last step,
Mm.
like, something that inhibits some neurotransmitter or something, you take a drug and it affects your biochemistry at some level, is like a sledgehammer approach. You're kind of going in there and just knocking out some, biological or neurological process. That's brilliant work that anybody could figure that out and can do that. And it brings tremendous relief to a lot of people. So I'm not knocking it. But I think there is evolution. Things get better and better and better. And I think that ultimately medicine will move more towards healing. What is the ultimate cause? Why, is this neurological functioning this way? Why, what led to this? And how can we reprogram? And I think there are a lot of things that can be reprogrammed. They used to say not long ago that your brain isn't going to change. At 30 years old, it's done deal, over,
Right.
finished. That's it. Now they're like, well, that's just totally wrong.
Mm.
I mean, every time you learn something, it's building new brain, neuron connections. It's evolving, it's changing, and it never stops.
Mm.
So everything is much more plastic, is much more adjustable. It's not written in concrete. Now, it can take a huge amount of work to change it.
And David, could there be gifts in this wiring too? Could there be actual gifts that these people have that maybe, if they didn't have this particular configuration, that they wouldn't be able to express?
Yes. One of the things that surprised me in the research is I thought, well, if we find an astrological key to bipolar disorder, I bet it's going to be some like hugely nasty, awful thing, like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune with the moon and Pluto. It's going to be like really heavy duty, stressed out to the max. And it isn't. I mean, they are stressful. They are extreme patterns, but we see people operate quite normally with the same patterns. So it got me to thinking the people diagnosed as bipolar disorder are not that different from anybody else. Like a fine line. I think mental health we're all very vulnerable. One death in our family, one traumatic experience, one being trapped in a situation, so if you got thrown in jail overnight or something, we're all very vulnerable. We think we're not, but we are. And, certain stressors and traumatic events or even nutritional things and other things can break the system, and I think, what I've begun to understand through this research is how fragile we all are. And we see the vulnerability to bipolar disorder, but it's not as severe as I thought it was. And there's always childhood experiences. Every one of Giselle's clients had concrete, severe trauma, physical, extreme social, not just, oh, daddy yelled at me one day and slapped me on the face. Oh, no, this is so, it's a combination of factors that cause the malfunction. And realizing that, I thought to myself, well, these people don't have like a disease. It's just functioning in a strange way. There must be good things in it. So about a week ago, very recently, I went to Google and I typed positive traits of bipolar disorder, something like that. And wow, I'm not the only one to think this. I saw these academic journal articles, peer-reviewed journal articles, the positive traits of people with bipolar disorder. There's certain things that they tend to do better. I can't remember what they are right now, but they do better than the average person. And they also fit with the planetary configuration. I think one of them was concentration, for example, which comes from the seventh harmonic, and the same thing that causes depression. So yeah, they're working differently, and a lot of that different working is dysfunctional and it is painful and it doesn't work well and some of it does. I have this optimism that we're going to be working more and more with scientists of all kinds and psychologists, and we're going to be developing treatment programs.
Mm.
Reprogram.
This fits with my bias that our astrological chart is beautiful and unique, and there's a reason for the exact configuration that we have. And so hearing you say that is really reassuring, because it's like, looking at a chart and being like, oh, that's a bad chart, or there's something wrong with you because you're like this, or any of those. I just feel that those are so harmful. Those are the kinds of harmful applications of astrology that I feel just don't work, for people in the long run. So having it like, hey, look, yes, you have this configuration, and yes, there's been this series of events in your life that might have triggered, and I love thinking of it as like less experienced and more experienced expressions of the same energy. So yes, there could be patterns that you're stuck in that aren't really helping you. However, there is a way to express it differently that would maybe feel better for you and in your life. So it just feels really empowering that there are answers. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. The vibrational astrology is really radically different from other forms of astrology in some ways. And one of the ways that it's different is that in vibrational astrology, everything has a purpose. Everything has a positive purpose. So when people say the 12th house is the house of self-undoing, no, there's nothing in the chart that's undoing. When people say, oh, I'm having a bad day because Mercury's retrograde and it's stopping things. No, actually, Mercury retrograde does not do that. Or the eighth house is, in Vedic astrology called Dushtana house, a difficult house. Your only hope is you retreat from the world and you get moksha, liberation. That's actually not true. We have the data from our database that shows it's not true. And when we consult people, everything has a reason. It has a purpose. Now, some things are more difficult. There's clearly way more difficult. Other things are more pleasant. But there are no malefics. Everything, for example, in Saturn. Actually, Saturn doesn't block anything in vibrational astrology. People may say, no, you're wrong, David. I've done astrology for 40 years. Saturn blocks everything. No, it doesn't. What Saturn does, we're very confident about this by applying the model and seeing how it works in different situations. What Saturn does is it tries to cut away everything superficial.
Oh,
Everything's superficial. So Saturn comes along, transits the husband's chart, the wife leaves. Why? Because he comes home, and back in the 60s or 70s, he comes home, he reads newspaper. Now he's on his cell phone googling something or whatever. He's not paying attention to her. He's not listening to her. He's not engaged with her. He doesn't need her. Now, it's going to be extremely painful. He's going to go through hell. But Saturn is saying, if you're not going to go to the bone, if you're not going to do something that lasts past death, that's Saturn's requirement. Sex doesn't last past death. Going to a party doesn't last past death. That's why Saturn doesn't like parties. That's why Saturn is dry, because Saturn wants to get to something that's going to last past death. Actually, some comedians have strong Saturn, because they've decided if they can make somebody laugh, that would be the most wonderful thing. So a lot of it has to do with what it means, why you're doing it. But the thing about Saturn is its criterion is so extreme, it just cuts away everything. And then you say, oh, it blocked me. Yeah, it blocked you because you don't have enough devotion, enough commitment, enough depth of sensitivity to make it hold on to you. You might think you do, but why do you want that new car? Because your neighbor's going to see you? Because the pretty girl next door is going to see you? Because it's going to help compensate because you didn't feel good because you didn't get on the football team when you were in 7th grade? Those are not good reasons to get a car. You're not going to get it.
Wow. This is an amazing reframe and amazing insights. And thank you so much for helping us understand this idea of every aspect in our chart having a purpose.
Yeah.
And so if you have things in your chart that are like, God, this is really hard, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but having a purpose, what I've found is when I can connect with a deeper purpose of why I'm going through something, it does make it easier in the sense that at least it has meaning. And it's not just some chaotic, horrible, random thing happening, that there is a purpose. So thank you, David, for that. And I appreciate that rabbit hole that you've gone down to see, like, could there be some gifts here? Could there be some reasons for this exact configuration.
And one great thing about Astrology Hub and all these alternative activities, as well as a lot of mainstream activities, is people are finally maturing to the point of realizing that you're going to die someday and accumulating a bunch of stuff. I mean, just do something you love. If you have a chance, then do it. And what I had a deep meditation once, many, many years, about 30 years ago. And I was actually feeling kind of guilty about doing astrology because, I was thinking, there are hungry children. There's genital mutilation. Sorry for getting into gross things, but I'm thinking there's disgusting things. And here I am analyzing, these golden mean structures and the planets and how they relate to people's charts. And the phrase that came to me in the meditation was, science got us into this mess and science will get us out of this mess.
Wow. Wow, that's fascinating. Oh my gosh.
It's hard for me not to get emotional.
Yeah.
Not that science is the only thing that'll get us out of this mess, but
right.
I knew, to me, it meant that's your part.
I love that so much, David. Thank you for sharing that story. It's so beautiful. And it brings me back to something that we were talking about earlier, which is the timing of it and vibrational astrology's emergence, because so many more people are aware of the energetic underpinnings of reality at this point, right? I mean, you'll hear people say, well, yeah, everything is energy. So then, of course, which I don't think was maybe part of everyday vernacular. I don't even know how many decades, probably in the 60s and 70s, maybe, but before that, right? So it's like this perfect idea, perfect timing, perfect technology coming through, enabling it to happen. Do you want to just spend a tiny bit of time talking about vibrational astrology? I know we talk about that on episode 64, but for those that are unfamiliar with what vibrational astrology even is, especially since it's so important to this idea of understanding astrology's link to bipolar disorder.
Yeah. So the basic idea of vibrational astrology is, well, there's a few basic ideas. One is that this obsession with the number 12 signs, 12 houses, aspects or 12ths of a circle. From our viewpoint, that's extremely limiting. So I don't have 12 fingers. I don't know if you do. If we're lucky, we have 5. Most flowers have 5 petals. The world around us is not divided into 12s all the time. So why, if it's as above, so below, why is everything 12 based? And people give different reasons for it. That's fine. But my point is, why are we so sure about that? So one idea we have in science is question everything. Question even what you think you know. Maybe you're not as smart as you think you are. Maybe Mother Nature's a little different. And what happened when I started doing this research back in the 70s, I collected the time people were in accidents. And I interviewed these people, and I found that the 5ths of a circle, the 7ths, the 9ths, 11ths, 13ths were not minor. And I know astrologers will say, oh, that's crazy. They are minor. Well, we found that they're not minor. Sorry, they're not. They're just as important as the trine and square. They just work differently. And the people with bipolar disorder have certain configurations in 7ths and also in 11ths with Uranus, and sometimes 13ths with Jupiter. And they all mean different things. So that's one of the basic ideas of vibrational astrology, is that there are all of these pieces that you can divide the sky into. And then people say, well, that's too complicated. Well, the physicist Richard Feynman said, I don't get to decide how Mother Nature is. I only get to discover what she is. We don't get to decide that that's too complicated. Maybe learning to play piano, jazz piano or classical piano is too complicated. Should be easier, Life is what it is. And we've been able to go into what appears to be complicated and find simple rules, what to look at amidst all those things. So that's one of the ideas of vibrational astrology. Another idea is that the archetypes, like Venus is like this princess and Mars is this young warrior, that underneath the archetypes there are energy processes. And we have a lot of evidence to support this, that there's an energy process that's underneath that, and then the archetypes are born out of the energy. When you go directly to the energy, the function of what the energy is doing, what that vibration is doing, you get right to the heart of what's going on. This is even true for zodiac signs, for everything. So yeah, that's my introduction to vibrational astrology.
Perfect. And Okay, so I'm wondering for people out there who are interested in understanding more, I could see how having just like a tiny bit of information could actually be a little bit dangerous because then we all try to go in and like self-diagnose or like, diagnose our children or whatever. So would your recommendation be to start with the book, that the book is going to give people enough of a starting point to start to see how this might apply in their own life or with the people in their life?
Yeah, there's several routes you can take. If you want to learn more vibrational astrology, there are several people teaching classes. Excuse me, Clarissa Dolphin. I teach very small group. I have 7 students, and it takes 2 years. And I'll be doing another thing with people in Turkey. So there are classes, there are books. In addition, the bipolar book is a great one.
Can you hold it up and so everybody can see the title of it? So The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder, a Scientific Breakthrough. And that is by David Cochrane. Is it also by Giselle Terry or just?
No, the book is just by me. I
Okay.
ended up writing it.
Mhm.
But her name is on every other page. I mean,
Okay, great. She is so lovely too.
oh my gosh.
I mean, she's
Yeah,
an extraordinary human being. She
she is.
is a psychotherapist, and she's just so dear. She's one of the leaders, I would say, in the field of people who are bridging astrology and
Yeah,
psychology in a
yeah,
very practical, tangible way. Because I know we have lots of people in our audience who are therapists now or who want to become therapists, but they also understand that astrology is a huge link to that. So, okay, so
yeah.
starting with the book, starting with learning
Yeah,
vibrational astrology itself.
here's another book, Vibrational Astrology, The Essentials.
Uh-huh.
And here's a third book, a study guide. This was done by graduates of my program. Diane Ammons is one of the people, a group of people did this. And this is actually made to go with a course. We're going to have a certification program and it goes over essentials. There's
Vibrational
also,
Astrology Study Guide for our friends on the podcast who are not seeing
right,
the visuals. Yep.
Vibrational Astrology Study Guide, right.
Yeah.
And then there are also the videos. I've made almost 600 YouTube videos, and they're like a half hour each. They're very detailed. There's entire course of basic Western astrology. I mean, all kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I I
there's other
like
things.
I love to give people like an actual starting point. I know for myself, if I hear 600 YouTube videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? So
Yeah,
starting with the book, if this is something that you want to continue exploring further, David has, like he said, a plethora of resources. And I know, David, it's very important to you to actually teach this and pass
yeah.
it along so that people can be practicing it. And then maybe someday they become teachers and that this can stay alive.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing a small group, and I have them do homework, and I go over their homework because my biggest interest is to develop people who are very exceptionally good. So I
Yes.
take a small group and I work with them personally. One more thing I'll mention for learning is my website, astrologydc.com. It's inexpensive. It's about, I think, $40 a year. It takes the YouTube video and organizes them into essentially what's a playlist.
Hmm.
And so there's a introduction to vibrational astrology. It's,
Mhm.
I think 40 or 60 different videos. So that's another way to learn
Mm.
because there it's organized. And there's other things. We have a thing called Kepler Club, meets once a month. And you can get in some interaction. So yeah, there's also a website, astrovibe.org, which is the Association of Vibrational Astrologers, which is starting up. And you can always go there and find out what's going on. Or stay in touch with Astrology Hub. And I stay in touch with Amanda, and Amanda will let you know what's going on.
For sure. And David, there's requests already to have you back as an inner circle astrologer. So maybe that's something we can
Well,
explore
we'll
further.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. So David, okay, I had one more question for you, and now I'm losing it. Shoot. Oh, yes. You said that you're doing some additional research on other things. So you mentioned heart disease. You mentioned eating disorders. What are
Yes.
the additional paths that you're following with this research?
I can't think of them off the top of my head. We're also doing things on astrological variables, like what exactly do the fixed stars do?
Mm,
That's a research project being done by Starlene Breiter. She's
mm,
one of our colleagues and researchers, and we meet regularly once a week to go over the research projects. So one of the things we do is we look at people or events like accidents. We also look at astrological things. We've done the 12 signs. We're now doing the 12 houses.
Mm.
We research them with this database analysis, compare it to what's going on. There's also a lot of theoretical developments. For example, the ascendant disappears at certain places on Earth, and there is no ascendant.
Oh,
That's a
interesting.
minor problem.
Yeah.
And we figured out a solution to that. And we've been testing it more anecdotally. Like we look at things that are that are confusing, cognitive dissonance, like there is no ascendant. And we found out, we're quite confident now that we know what's going on there and what to do about it. So there's all of that. And one other resource is the Vibrational Astrology Conference in early March. It's a live conference. We don't have it, dual
Virtual.
mode. It's in North Florida, Gainesville, Florida. Next one is March 3rd through 5th. And there you meet the vibrational astrologers and
Wow.
meet other people who are studying and learn some of the stuff going on. Well, that will just blow your mind and open up doors like crazy, because we're all there and we're just people. You can just go up to somebody and say, I like you. I like what you're doing. Can we talk for a half hour? I mean, they'll be happy,
Amazing.
because we're all just people. We just spend a lot of time in this particular thing. That's all.
David, are you looking for more researchers, and are you looking for more quote unquote subjects? Because something that Leah, thank you, says in the chat, I'm recovering from an eating disorder. If you need more volunteers for your research, let me know. So are you looking for people to study and also people that study,
So looking for people to study, we can use volunteers, but that's actually, okay, now we get nerdy. Put on my nerd hat, that's actually not a scientifically sound sampling method.
Right.
Called a convenience sampling. You did a master's degree in psychology. You got indoctrinated with all these. You might remember this stuff.
I do.
Okay, yeah.
I love statistics. I think it's the most fascinating. I loved of all the math I had to take, statistics was my jam for sure.
But it's useful. Yeah. I mean, So it's called convenience sampling, and basically, the ideas of statistics are just common sense. It's like there's too much selection bias.
Right.
People that have Moon Pluto are going to say I had a blah blah blah, and they're going to submit their data. Anyway, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's not something we can present at the conference.
Right.
It's more like an anecdotal level, which is important, but it's not the high level research. We have to have a better sampling method. So yeah, we can look at that, but now as far as researchers go, one of our problems with this new research institute, it's at cosmobiology.org. www.cosmobiology.org. The site is already being developed. It's going to be done by the end of the year. You'll see one of the data scientists who's founding it. They're not all astrologers. We have to get a board of directors, and we don't know hardly anybody who knows enough about specifically vibrational astrology and research method, and would like to get involved. So
okay, so that's an invitation out there for someone who can do that. And what I would like to say is, if this is just lighting you up, you're like, whoa, this is a whole new world to explore, then definitely check out all these different resources that David has. And David, I'm just so grateful that you're doing this. I feel like it's very cutting edge astrology, and the idea that there's people being trained in how to practice it, and then they're going to be able to train at some point more and more of us in this field. So it's just very exciting. And I'm so grateful for the work that you do and all the contributions that you have made and continue to make to astrology. We're very, very lucky to have you in the world, following your passion, following your curiosity. So thank you for doing that. And is there anything else you want to say before we close out?
What I want to say is thank you, Amanda, because us mystical nerds, I mean, all I do is meditate and figure out all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm not good at marketing or any of that stuff. And maybe I could be if I could get enough motivation, but that'll never happen. So, you're to me like the top, the creme de la creme. Like you're just so engaging, so exciting. You know how to manage stuff, and we all do different things. And I sometimes tell people, I can do matrix algebra and calculus in my head, but I can't put my socks on properly. I mean, I just I have no idea. Like I also don't know how to use the microwave. I refuse to learn.
Oh my gosh, Awesome.
So I just don't, it's all bothersome. My wife, as you know, Faye, she takes care of everything. I can't pay bills. It, it's actually, it's talk about disorders, having this energy it's not easy. Like I have to do it. If I don't do it, I start to spin out of control.
You have to express it, which
Yeah. So
we all have these aspects
I
of
have
ourselves that we
to
have to express.
invent and discover every day, and then, or I start spinning out of control. Also, my meditations and stuff. So, I know what to do. And the great thing is I make all these discoveries one after another, but it's a delicate path. And I need people around me to take care of things because it's hard to explain. I remember reading once, I think it was Steve Jobs said he had trouble picking his shirt out from
Yeah.
I
So that's why
can't.
he just wears a black turtleneck all the
He
time.
just wears a black turtleneck, right?
Yeah.
Because he can't pick out When I read that, I said, "Oh, good. I'm not the only one."
You know
It's
what?
like,
This is so true, and this is definitely a sidebar, but I think it's really relevant in the astrological conversation because it's one of the things that I feel is a gift of astrology is giving us permission to be who we are and not try to compensate and be someone else. And when you know what your strengths are, and David, thank you for being where you're at in your life and being a model of that. It's like when you know what your strengths are, you know what you're not good at. It's like, God,
right.
I have to admit, I had to take calculus for my psychology degree, my undergrad degree. I think they were just trying to weed people out of the major, so they
Yeah,
made it
yeah.
really hard,
They do that
And
to me,
and I
people.
had to take calculus, and I got straight A's in college, David. You would be proud of me.
Yeah.
I just okay, so I got straight A's except for calculus. I worked my butt off. I had a personal tutor. I was in every study group. I went to
Yeah.
every single thing I could, and I got a C minus, and I literally could not do it. So I just
Yeah.
know I'm not good at that. I'm just not good at that. So
Yeah.
there's things that we all know we're not good at, and then it's not like an excuse. It's just, hey, I'm not wired for that for whatever reason, but I'm wired for some
Right.
other things. I'm really glad it's helpful for people like you that are wired for those kinds of things. So we can just complement each other. How beautiful is that?
Yep. That's what
Right?
it's about.
That's what it's all
Absolutely.
about. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, David. We really appreciate you and your time and again, all your contributions. And I love all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your amazing comments while we've been here live. Thank you for continuing to share with us when this recording is over. We do pay attention. I can't respond to everybody, but I read them and it just makes me so happy to know you're all out there and that you geek out on this stuff as much as we do. So thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you, as always, for making astrology a part of your life. And if you are going to ESAR at the end of August, I just found out that David's going to be there. That is a conference that's happening, an astrological conference happening at the end of August. Would love to meet you all there. And can't wait to hear your talk, David, and see you again very soon. All right, everybody, take care.
Thank
And we'll
you, everyone.
catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye, everybody.